Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Sahaj Times podcast. My name is Lele. I'm the host of this podcast, and I'm trying to make this podcast a safe space, a space where we can openly talk about the things that we struggle with, even in our spiritual path. Many of you have written to me asking, Lele, can you bring mental health into your episodes? And since it's a very current topic, it's being talked about more and more, and yet in Sahaja Yoga, it's still often misunderstood or even a little bit of a taboo. So today we are going to open that conversation a little bit with honesty, respect, and hopefully with some light. Before we dive, so for today's episode, I have invited three yoginis who are also professional psychologists, Katya, Delia, and Irina, in alphabetical order. Over the years, they have had the opportunity to support many yogis, not just with mental health, but also along their spiritual journey. So, welcome to the podcast, Auntie Katya, Auntie Delia, and Auntie Irina. Can we say, let's say Katya, Delia, and Irina, let's not say aunties. Can I ask you to introduce yourself for in like a few words? We can start from Katya, Delia, and Irina, so we can follow the alphabetical order.
Okay, I am Italian, living in Germany, in Berlin. I'm yogini since many, many years, and I am a psychologist, and I work in this field since many years.
Cool, cool. Delia?
Hi. Hi, Lele. Hi, everyone. So good to be here. I'm Delia. I'm from Romania. And I've been in Sahaj since I was a child. I'm not going to say how many years, but I was, since I was 9 years old. And I'm a clinical psychologist as well as a Jungian psychotherapist, and I'm practicing here in Brasov in Romania.
Cool, thank you very much. And the last one, Irina, what about you?
Thank you, Lele, for inviting us. It's really exciting. And hello, everyone. Good morning. I don't know. Good evening to the Sangha. Depends when you will see this. So I am working and living in Italy for almost 8 years. Although my home country is Romania, and I got my self-realization in 2009. And I started this professional journey as a medical doctor, actually. So it's been a bit strange that I changed, but I did because I could see how important it is to work on most of the aspects. And now I do psychotherapy. So thank you again.
Okay, thank you very much to all of you. And I'm just because I have to say it, so I will ask you the first initial question, but feel free to jump in. We don't have to follow any structure. It's really free form conversation. So as we already did last in these like last calls that we did together, you can jump in. You can, especially you can correct me if I say something wrong, because this is a subject that I don't know anything about. And since I don't know anything about, I want to ask you first of all, just as a nice break, what is a mental health, and how does it relate to our subtle system, our emotions, or even to our spiritual path? I would say.
So maybe I could start this and then ask Katya and Delia to come. Mental health is a vast subject, and it's kind of difficult to just use one definition. But it's a state basically of well-being, which is very much connected to the spiritual and physical being. And it's that state in which you can get naturally or maintain naturally a state of self-realization. You can cope with the stress. You're so much aware of your qualities and resources and use them. you can contribute to the society, you have relationship that functions, you make a healthy introspection. And it's not just the absence of a mental illness, just like the definition of body health is not just the absence of body illness. That's something I think it's important to understand. And I guess in a way, how to recognize mental illness is to understand how it manifests, in daily life. Like one could ask, but am I mentally healthy or am I mentally ill? And I will leave some space for Delia and Katya to complete this.
Yeah, what I can add is that on a simple, practical way, if you recognize that you are in contact with reality, and you also have a good relationship, and you are part of a community, and you have a net of friends, and you have a good social skills, then you can say that you have good mental health. And it's interesting because it's very near actually to our Sahaj principle, no? To be in the present and to be collective. So there is, you can see some similarity in this, no? And yeah, this is let's say, the most important point in the mental health. And of course, that you can sleep well in the night, you have a balanced life, you can meditate nicely and be thoughtless easily because there is a connection. And the connection with Sahaja Yoga, and especially with the brain, is that if you have a good mental health, your left and right side are more balanced, and so you are more in the central channel, let's say, then less in the sympathetic and more in the parasympathetic. So this is words that actually Shimadaji told us many times, and are anyway part of the psychology too. So I'll leave the rest to Delia.
Yeah, and to continue from this, Mother always, often she explained that we have the physical level, we have the emotional level, and the mental level, and then the spiritual level. So in this order. So, and as Sahaja Yogis, we often jump to the spiritual level, but if our emotional and our mental levels are still suffering, it can hinder our Kundalini. And even if we feel, for example, vibrations, we may still feel, for example, that we have a lot of thoughts, or we have a lot of self-doubts. So there can still be a lot of emotional and mental layers there that have unresolved pain, conditionings, unconscious patterns. So mental health, it actually isn't separate from spirituality, but it is part of the ascent.
So I feel like also asking you, since we have already covered the topic of Shimadaji talking about this, can we also talk about some differences, or at least what she mentioned about therapy? I mean, I don't know if she talked about therapy, but about psychology and a certain so-called like psychologist, because we know she mentioned Freud as a really evil, like satanic, personality, but also she talked about Jung. And so I think we can talk a little bit about this now.
I will jump in because in the analytical world, in the psychology world, we say thank God for Jung, because Freud has actually damaged quite a lot. And with his primitive concepts, actually we have quite a lot of mental health problems because of Freud and that type of therapy. However, Jung, and Shimadaji talked in many, many speeches of Jung. So he had this tremendous depth, and also he managed to go through the suffering of discovering all these concepts and actually, finding a scientific way to present, for example, the unconscious, the collective unconscious to the world. And the divine used Jung as an instrument to kind of bypass all this basic layer and what Freud has said, which was very damaging, and going more in depth. Because in Jungian psychotherapy we don't just look, for example, at symptoms, but we look at the whole. Same in the Sahaj world, it's not just one chakra. We have the whole subtle system. We have all the deities within, and it's not just one single thing that we need to we can look at. So if we look at Shimataji's speeches, and we've actually studied the Shimataji's talks where she mentioned psychology and therapy, and she really talks about that we have to differentiate between what it was, the Freudian path, and the other part, the Jungian one. And you will see that when she talks about the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, the left and right and the central channel, she often uses the medical and the psychological words into explaining, So I can see a huge connection between what we do in what we know with the subtle system and what we know in the psychological field. And it's actually really beautiful to see that Mother has given us so much information. And actually techniques used in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, techniques used in Jungian therapy, in other type of therapies, we can find them in Mother's talks. Obviously she used simple words, but we can find those techniques in her talks, and it is so beautiful to see that she has given us everything on the plate. I will let Katia and Irina complete me on this.
Yes, I can also say that there is the book of the Adishakti. In the capital of the Muladhara, Shimadaji says that, of course, Freud really destroyed or created a lot of problems on that chakra. But she said that the psychology is getting much, much better, and she speaks very positively of psychology, and she speaks about also yes, most is a behavioral therapy, because she connected with the brain. She said how much is important, the connection with the body. So we are not our mind, but we are our brain, and it's really like this. Actually, this is also psychology. And also she says she said that it's very, very interesting and good, the psychosynthesis, that is a kind of therapy that was born actually in Firenze, in Florence, from Assagioli, and is a very spiritual kind of psychotherapy also. So is interesting too. So in the book of the Shakti, she speaks about psychology in a positive way. Yeah. Irina, you want to say something?
Yeah, so we are so blessed to have the possibility to take vibrations. So that can also, whenever we have doubts like, oh my God, should I visit a psychologist, and if so, whom? The vibrations speak, because now what we know as psychology and especially psychotherapy has nothing to do with what happened in the past, fortunately, just as Delia explained. And there are many schools, and I was so excited while I was doing my training to see how many Sahaj concepts have entered in these schools. probably because the collective level is raising more and more the time as the time passes. We talked today about compassion focused therapy, for instance, and I was so happy to see that we talk about therapy that is being used in trauma, and they talk about the higher self, which basically is the spirit. It has nothing to do with the old psychoanalysis. So it's like, because now the bridge is done, just as Katya said, between neurosciences and psychology and even spirituality. And it's just a matter of time until everything is integrated, also in the scientific world. And Sahaja Yoga has given us the basis to accelerate that and understand that. So it's kind of exciting to see that the enlightenment comes also in this. So yeah, we as yogis have this beautiful way of, in doubt is, oh, is this method good for me in this moment? And just a parenthesis, myself included, I was really worried, oh my God, I won't do a cognitive school because it's cognitive, it involves the mind, and no, we don't want to get lost in the labyrinth of thoughts. But actually, cognitive therapy, some parts of it are not as scary as the title says. It's actually about letting go of thoughts, looking at the thought process, see how it's in a way diverted from the truth, the quality of the thoughts, how can we, take care of the garden. And I use a metaphor that Delia sometimes says, no, imagine that mental health is like a garden where the soil is basically your background and, everything that you had since childhood, and the plants are your thoughts. The weeds are some negative thoughts that could invade the garden. The water is our self-care. The light, of course, is the, the illumination, and but the garden is us. We do the choices, and therapy could be just like a fertilizer or something that helps the weeds to take them out easily. But we are the garden. We're completely in charge of our journey and our mental health. So.
Yeah, what is also interesting to me is that yogis usually can bring Sahaja Yoga into their world, into their job. So you can also bring Sahaja Yoga to psychology and therapy. So you can create the enlightened therapy or enlightened psychology, or call it as you want. I don't know if Katya, you wanted to add something to what Irina was saying.
Yes, I would like to add that most of the therapists, the psychotherapists, we learn many kind of therapy. For example, me, I made the basic Jung and Gestalt, and then after systemic, and then trauma therapy. And we all learn so much and so many, because the integration all of this give us an overview that is a bit more complete. So, and that's why and we as a yogini, of course, no, we tried all the time in our studies, in our working, to integrate also Sahaja Yoga, and that understanding which is the connection between what we know as a psychotherapist, psychologist, and the Sahaja Yoga and the human being, how is working. So it is let's say a process also, and it's very interesting to discover in Shrimadaji's speeches so many things that are also used during the psychotherapy. So it's really a big integration of it. I would say the integration is, let's say, the word that Shrimada used for Sasrara, and it's really also integration, we can say, with the kind of therapy, and integration is also a key word for the work we do as a psychotherapist. No, is also interesting. We can maybe say it later. I don't know. It's a very important word.
But also, if I may add, it's not only, it's also selection. because due to the teachings of Sri Mataji and the basis, the values, the principles that she transmitted, we had the blessing to take into our bag, let's say, the instruments that were more auspicious and with good vibrations. And often we talk between each other and say, hey, did you see this new instrument? What do you think? How are the vibrations? Okay, what did you... So we really, really are blessed and so grateful that we could select, and it's not only integration, it's also about selection. So, yeah.
So, how actually are the subtle system and mental health related to each other? What I'm actually asking you is because I've noticed that once you start doing Sahaja Yoga, I've seen many people just taking care about spirituality, and then physical health goes a little bit on the side. So they only think about that. Mental health also goes a little bit on the side, and only it becomes only spiritual. Is that a way we can balance all of this? Of course, working out though from one side and maybe mental health. I don't know how to do it without doing therapy, and I want to understand, based on your experience, how do mental health and the subtle system are related? Like, if I struggle spiritually, will I eventually struggle mentally? Or if I struggle mentally, will I eventually struggle spiritually on the subtle system?
Um, if I'll jump in and then I'll ask Katya and Irina to complete the answer. When you were saying this, it came my own personal experience. So in our training, we need to do hundreds of hours of personal analysis of therapy, And before I started doing my training and my personal analysis, I went to a health center, and a SAHJ doctor, told me that I have a catch. Actually, I knew about that catch, but I was like working and working and working, and still I couldn't find, a good clearance. I mean, it was still heavy. And then I started doing therapy, and I started I discovered some hidden parts, some blind spots, and I've learned to introspect myself. And I understood where that issue came from. And it really, really, it was such a huge, it was as if something really I felt so much more lighter, and I could feel the vibrations flowing in that chakra. And I'm sure that with our patients, such patients, they've also told us, once they realized something, they had a breakthrough, and they could work through whatever was there in a hidden layer. They could also feel the chakra more lighter, or the vibrations were flowing much better. And we have this. There is a kind of pressure, and I have to say this, in the spiritual life, to be okay all the time, or to say that it's okay if I give vibrations, I have to be okay. And of course it works for many people, but also that pressure can become internalized. And some of us can think, oh, if I have anxiety, or if I feel lower, or I don't believe in myself, I'm not a good yogi, or maybe I feel there's something wrong with me. But the truth is, there is nothing wrong with us. We're just humans, and we all carry history. We all carry conditionings. And being on the spiritual path doesn't mean bypassing our human experiences. Actually, Sri Mataji was always incredible compassionate towards human suffering, and she always showed us, how to rise above it, but never, by repression or by suppression. And when we start to work on the mental and emotional level, we can really feel more connected with our chakras, and we become more aware of our archetypes, of our, deities in our chakras, and we actually understand, the mother archetype, the father archetype, the child within ourselves, how to look after it. And, each chakra is holding an archetype, and we learn so much, and we become so much more aware of who we really are.
Yes, I can. I agree 100%. And with Delia, and I want to say also that my experience with in the therapy also with yogis, but also not yogis who are meditating with me in the Italian program I do in Berlin, they really feel the chakra are changing when we work out something deep from inside that has to do with some bad experiences or whatever happened in the life. And they all tell me that there is a connection, no? There is a, so they say, for example, I feel that more light here in the center heart, for example, or they feel the stomach and the digestion like that was there was a tension here that was not tension anymore. Some they feel, oh, my sasrara is opening. It's very interesting to see, of course, there's a body and chakra connected with some experiences we had. So I have many times the experience of it. No? So there is an amazing connection between that. And how is the connection, and why there is a neurophysiologic explanation of it? I mean, of course, maybe today is too much, but maybe we could make just some one part of podcast speaking about it, because it's very complicated and needs maybe some pictures, whatever, but we can really explain what happened in our brain and why it's connected, what is in our memory and what is in our brain with our chakra, emotion, and whatever thoughts. Irina, I don't know if you want to say something.
Yeah. I will, while hearing you, it came into my attention the fact that whenever we have to face suffering, if it's emotional suffering, if it's any kind of relationship suffering, we tend to put it away. We are born, with this mechanism to defend ourselves. But most of the times we didn't choose that pain. Okay, something happened to us in our life story. It was something that we were supposed to, or it may be, in a karmic way, it's something that we needed to be exposed to in order to build up something. But it's in our human nature to just put that pain in a closet, somewhere under the carpet, because it's just too much. It's just too much to face. And sometimes family do that all together, not just one person. So when this happens, when we deposit things in what Jung taught us that we can call shadow, whenever we don't want to look there in that chamber, not necessarily because there is something bad there, but we think that maybe something bad is there and we are afraid of that, then this shadow takes over the control. And sometimes, there is the famous quote of Jung, whenever we don't face our shadow, it will haunt us and it will guide our life choices, and we call it destiny. And this can happen also in a Sahaj level. And I'm going to go more concrete as an example now. I used to have this very big pain in my life, which I wasn't even that much aware of, because I wanted to be, a good girl, a good Sahaja yogi. I could never, ever imagine that there would be something in my shadow. Oh no, it doesn't exist. I didn't want to exist. But guess what? It's not as you decide, it's as our unconscious actually wants. And I used to have very bad nightmares, like a lot. And the more I worked on myself with candle, with ajwan, I used to put matka. I asked the collective for abundance, also did two treatments. The more they came out. And I was amazed. I thought, okay, or I'm completely wrong, or there is something out there which needs to be listened. And maybe it's not a punishment, maybe it's a compassion from God. And mother guided me. I started therapy also with a Sahaj therapist, also for my professional formation. And I'm now so lucky to have had this experience because I could see blind spots. I could see where the pain was. I didn't run away. I didn't do that escapism that mother says sometimes. I understood the message, and now it's become a resource. It has become something that I can use also with the clients, and it made me make other choices to respect more my left side, to understand this, put it more in the center, and then I could meditate. Finally, I could meditate and feel the vibrations and say, oh, so this is how yogis usually feel. That's so cool. I want that more. And it happened in years. So yeah, it's a way to understand, to make gentle and compassionate introspection, to show love towards yourself, and be grateful for how we're constructed as human beings. We are not wrong. We're just humans, and we're perfect the way we are.
I actually wanted to say, and exactly what Irina has said now at the end, that one thing I see again and again in therapy is that, in a way, therapy teaches us to introspect ourselves, but in a grounded way, in a compassionate way, in a clear and honest way. Now, Mother has told us that we need to introspect, and some of us we have it kind of, we get born with this beautiful quality, but some of us, like us, for example, or me, or Irina, because she said it as well, for us it was being in therapy, it was a way to learn how to do it, but in a really meaningful and grounded way. And I think that is quite an important aspect.
Do you think that, as Irina was saying before, usually when we come across with a problem, maybe we try to put it on the side and ignore it? Do you feel like in Sahaja Yoga, since we are more keen to negativity, and this feeling of having a problem may, I don't know, can make us feel like we are failing spiritually? Can these sort of things happen more in Sahaja Yoga? Also, since seems like people are not really used to communicate about this stuff just because of, I don't know, the fear of shame, the fear of isolation, of judgment, which is something that come up many times, in Sahaja Yoga. When I'm like on the tables with my friends, they feel judged, they feel shamed for certain things.
Absolutely, because they tend to believe, oh, if this happens to me, I'm a bad yogi. And of course, neither of us wants to be, between brackets, no, a bad yogi. So the tendency is to go too much, maybe sometimes, into overworking ourselves, into, doing something sometimes without realizing, even mechanical, just because we have this idea of correlation, no? The more I use the candle, the more it will work. And it does. On the spot, it does. It's just about how to maintain that central channel open. I mean, for that moment, it does. But if in my life choices, I go on hurting myself unconsciously, then I sabotage the work of Kundalini. And it's just about making conscious whatever choices and behaviors I do, and I don't even realize that they put me in the left channel too much or on the right channel too much. So yeah, I think it has to do a lot of wanting to belong to the collective, wanting to be the ideal, no, wanting to be as much as to the ideal self. And that's fine, we all go there. It's just choosing the right products to clean the cloth. And if I have a sari and that, and it's somehow stained, if the stain doesn't go away, it doesn't mean that I don't want to clean it. Maybe I just need to use a different product for that kind of stain. And maybe I didn't do that stain. Maybe it was already stained before I came to Sahaja Yoga. So it's just cleaning up with all the instruments we have, something that was meant to be cleaned up, from our life story, from our past choices. It's fine. It's fine. And I will pass that to Delia because I know that shame and guilt are some themes she talks about frequently.
Yeah, well, just because we have this, we can have this tendency to say, I shouldn't feel angry, I shouldn't feel jealous, I shouldn't feel this or that. But those feelings, those hard feelings, difficult to look at and to stay with, if they're ignored, they go kind of underground and they can start influencing us in hidden ways, So then with love and compassion, we try to uncover, and to allow these feelings and to understand that we are just humans, and we have this beautiful, tremendous power within ourselves as yogis to be able to work with this. And imagine like we have this house, this beautiful house, and once we get the light of the divine, all the rooms most of the rooms get filled with light, but also one or two rooms, they still remain in darkness. And from the outside, the house looks beautiful, everything is nice. But you can still sense, that there is some things unfinished. There are still some rooms which haven't got the power, the light. So, we just try to gently open those rooms too and bring some light in there with love and compassion.
Yeah, I also would like to add something. I have to say that many years ago I was really idealizing Sahaja Yoga and Sahaja Yogis, thinking that yogis are all perfect. Meanwhile, when I started work as a psychologist, I realized in the psychotherapy that actually we are all human beings, and we function as a yogi also as a human beings. So also we have our defense mechanism like all the human beings. We all have our problems, mental health problems, body health problem, whatever. And we have, Irina was a little bit talking about it. Maybe I can say it a few words more. When Shrimadaji always speaks about it, when she speaks about fear, she says that we react in a way that we don't think, but we have immediately, spontaneously react. And this reaction actually is a way to survive in front of real danger, no? And this happens not only when we are in front of a real danger, but also when we have a danger that comes from inside because of some experience we had, or if we had a trauma, or if we have stress. We are working too much, we are under stress, and we create in the body a lot of cortisol and so on and so on. This, what happened is that part of the brain is activated, the amygdala, and this creates really body changes. In the body, we have some changes, activation of the sympathetic, and instinctively, we can have a three different defense mechanism. One is the one that we escape. So is the avoidance, what we were talking before. The other one is the fight. So the flight is the avoidance. The fight is, we can see in our behavior, is aggressive. Then I start to be aggressive. Suddenly, I don't even know why, and I cannot control it. And the third one is when we are frozen, and is most coming from the part of the parasympathetic of the spinal part. And this defense mechanism we all have as human beings, and also in Sahaja Yoga. And there is this defense mechanism, as they already said, and Delia spoke about, that they are part of the shadow and so on. But what I wanted to say, there is a very interesting speech of Shimataji where she says, and I wrote the date, it's the 11th of February 1983, is a Mahashivaratri puja, where she says, how do we deal with negativity? And because it is a defense mechanism, we feel like a negativity inside. Like if I immediately get angry and I cannot control my anger, then I think it is a negative part of me who is reacting, no? And she says, talk to this part. You know, in many speeches, she said to talk with our ego. And in the same way, she says, talk with this negativity and explain what to do or why is giving to you this trouble. And maybe this part will understand and you will work it out. So it's interesting for you to listen to the speech. And what I want to say is that we do the same in the therapy. In the psychotherapy, when I heard it, I was like, oh, wow, it's again one thing that Shiva says that we are doing in the psychotherapy. This is what we do. We let the patient speak really with this inner part. There are different methods. The Gestalt use to put in a chair, some other with imagination inside, some other kind of therapy, feeling in the body, whatever. There are different methods so you can use. But the main point is to make the connection between our awareness and ourself with this, let's say, negativity. So we talk. It's not anymore unconscious. It becomes conscious. We talk with this part, and this part is not controlling us anymore. We control this part. So we don't get angry anymore like this because we can talk with this inner part that is reacting, becoming aggressive. So, and like this, many other kind of other behavior, bad behavior we can have in our life can be changed through this inner dialogue. And of course, some people, and I have to say to you, some yogis I know, they manage even by themselves. Very few of them I met, but it's more difficult, of course, and the help of the psychotherapy can make it more easy to overcome it. I hope it was not too long, but I think it's important to be aware that it's possible to do something.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like somehow you also have to create some sort of a self-awareness beside your catches, like in a way that you know that if you feel one certain catch, you know how to work it out, but then it comes back. Why? Like, do I have actually figured out what is the catch? You know that I feel, for example, on the right heart, on the left heart. I can go to, of course, I can, I don't know, follow some, I can listen to some Shimadaji speech talking about the right heart and left heart, and I can also figure it out. But that is also like part of the introspection. You, Irina, mentioned healthy introspection, and I'm like, is there also an unhealthy introspection then?
Oh, yes, Lele. Unfortunately, yes. And this is one of the first things that the people that we work with come And this is one of the first things that we see, because it's a violent introspection, I tend to say. You know, it's like, oh, I'm so stupid. I'm an idiotic. How can I do this? It's not possible. I'm a yogini. I should be like this. I should be like that. So it's like, you know, inner punishment. And when we hear even the tone, not only the content, but the tone, the pitch of this voice, you know, we were asking, whose voice is this? I wonder. Is it more like a female voice? Is it more like a male voice? And then maybe somehow it comes up that, you know, maybe the father of that person used to speak that with someone in the family, or it's that negative part of the archetype, because as Delia mentioned, the archetypes, they are extremely important. You know, they are models that we have absorbed within us at an emotional level when the rational part is still not developed, and they guide us. And the way we speak to each other, it's most of the times because we saw someone in our family or a caregiver that spoke that way. And the intention is good. You know, the intention is, I want to correct myself, I want to be more in balance. But are those the ways to do it? And whenever we use harsh words, whenever we push ourselves, we go too much into, you know, duties, and we don't give time for rest, for existing, for healthy pleasure, then someday something there is definitely or we press the brake or we press the acceleration too much. Fortunately, yogis understand that very fast, because they have the, you know, the language and the knowledge from Sri Mataji. But I would say that unhealthy introspection, at least what I've seen so far, is basically the norm. Or there is too much self-indulgence, which could come from the ego side. That's another side of it, you know. Or some yogis, it can happen that they believe that they have too much ego when they have a very persecutory superego. And that's also interesting, because then, you know, they tend to, instead of becoming their own friends, their own supporters, they tend to put even much more pressure. And that doesn't go anywhere, really. So, yeah, it is basically not to go too much into self-indulgence and justify everything and put responsibility on others. But it's not putting, you know, all the guilt and blame and shame on yourself and then just using, you know, whipping yourself. That won't function others, you know, because it's doing harm to others or doing harm to yourself. It's doing harm to a human being. And God never asked us to do that. I'm sure that God doesn't want us to do harm, neither to ourselves, neither to others. He just wants to be happy, prosperous human beings. And Mother said that in many speeches. So I actually made a collection of fragments where Shri Mataji insists on being kind to ourselves. But she says that literally, I mean, there is no interpretation on that. You know, she says, speak kind to yourself, be good to yourself. Because if we go to a puja, you know, and show Mother our love and offer flowers, offer fruit, you know, offer her love, but we don't do that to ourselves and our spirit, it's incomplete. It's incomplete. And, you know, it's like a mother would say that she receives flower from a child, but the child continues to cut himself. What mother would be happy? She would say, please, probably, please, don't give me that flower, but be kind to yourself, first of all. And ideally, give a flower to yourself and give a flower to me, but please don't harm yourself. Please, it's beyond my power to tolerate that. So yeah, I guess it's very, very important to learn how to do that in a central channel way. And there are ways to do that. There are ways to train on that as well. Then they become normality. I don't know, Delia, Katia, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that another way, another negative way to introspect is not to do it at all. And we call this resistance, in therapy. Patient, yeah. When we, for example, we don't even, we just, give vibrations, try to meditate and just remain on the surface in a way, and without going deeper and seeking understanding what is really happening within. And also in therapy, and I'm not talking about yogis, but we see many of our patients that they have a resistance to go deeper, resistance to stay, to understand themselves, to stay a bit more with their pain, to uncover, what's there under the carpet. So I think, we actually develop this power of introspection, of clarity, and but also, yeah, as Irina said, in a very gentle and loving way.
Yeah, I would like to add also one thing that what before Delia was saying about the shame and the judgment. This is also a way not to love yourself and be strict with yourself. It reflects then the strictness also on the other ones. So and then we become very, very, very judgmental. If we don't love ourselves, somehow we don't manage to love the others too, no? Really. And this judgmental attitude that I must say is often in Sahaja Yoga and so on, this creates, I feel, problems individually to the people, and but also on a collective level, because then there is this shame to show who you are or to really be yourself, because you don't want to be judged, and this doesn't really create an atmosphere of trust and working together. So I feel it's very important to start in taking care of each other, ourselves, and start to love ourselves and be more compassionate and loving to ourselves and also to the others. This empathy and this compassion that we should really uh, act and not just speak about it, but just do it on a collective level. This would change all the dimension and all the levels we have in Sahaja Yoga, but also in the world at the moment. And now we know which is the situation. So how much is important that this love and compassion is in our life is really very, very important.
Yeah, of course. I feel like there is a. No, not that I feel like, but I'm quite sure that there is some sort of social pressure uh, to appear fine. Know that everything is okay, which is something that also sound dangerous if we like take it like really far. But from this, I would like to ask you, since you have some sort of knowledge about it, what kind of inner or emotional struggles do you see in like commonly among Sahaja yogis? What I see, what I've seen like since always, since also from especially from my brother's generation, is that all the people that went, for example, to a Sahaj school came back with something, which is anti-intuitive. I don't know if it makes any sense in English, but seems like maybe also at a young age we took things a little bit lightly, maybe too much. But this is my experience, what I've seen talking to people. What are the emotional struggles that you commonly see among yogis?
Okay. Okay, so when we talk about mental health issues, it's not only emotional. Of course, it manifests a lot on an emotional level, and you know, because we also see non-yogis, and it's interesting to see that whatever is in the, allow me the term, non-yogi population, although we never know who will the future yogi would be, because there are also a lot of seekers. This is the beautiful part. The one who wants to introspect, they actually have a huge potential to get their true self, and so I prefer to call them potential seekers. But you know, it's, since we're all humans, it's more or less the same situations, the same problems. But yogis have extra. So besides the potential pressure that you talked about, no, be perfect, be a yogi, but we also have extra tools to face that. So the process is more accelerated. So I've seen anxiety disorders, a lot of that, and you know, anxiety related to many aspects, whether personal, also related to collective, also, you know, um, maybe some, we could call them phobias. It depends, because the anxiety disorders are a lot. I can see also trauma and stress related disorders. I could see, and I've heard, I didn't deal directly with substance related disorders also, which could happen. Some depressive disorders, also some personality disorders, some somatic symptoms and related disorders. You know, when you have some organic issue and you go to the doctor, and basically after all the checkup you don't see anything, and actually it's due to something unresolved at the emotional level. And this actually quite the symptom, the somatic symptoms, that's quite a lot. Also some feeding and eating disorders. So yeah, I guess it's normal, because we are just out of the population, people who want to develop more and to raise above that. So yeah.
Can I add one thing, Irina? I would like to add something, because what you just mentioned sound like something that every single human being might have, but this thing you're just mentioning are traumas or like bad experiences built together, you know, that somehow eventually is gonna build up a slow trauma. I don't know how to call it, but like a series of experiences. um are they related? Like the main source is like can be Sahaja Yoga, in a way that human beings doing Sahaja Yoga, not the essence of Sahaja Yoga, but like on a social level and stuff like that. So you've seen that this stuff started from experiences in Sahaja Yoga.
Okay, so I don't know if I got the question right. I don't say that Sahaja Yoga was a trigger for that. I mean, because Sahaja Yoga is perfect the way it is. So Sahaja Yoga as I wouldn't say an instrument, as a lifestyle, as a way to reach the divine, it's perfect in itself. I'm saying that if someone entering Sahaja Yoga or having unsolved issues while being in Sahaja Yoga because of different reasons, maybe because even the families are not aware, they don't recognize that. By the way, there could be also some neurodevelopmental disorders, you know, like ADHD and autism and so on. Then these things can project onto Sahaja Yoga. You know, like they could distort the meaning. Just to have I don't know, give an example. If you have like an obsessive compulsive disorder and you don't realize, maybe you don't have compulsion, so you don't have behaviors, you do have obsessive thoughts, which basically could be more like these are symptoms, okay? This is not the identity of the person. I just have to do this parenthesis. So whenever we talk of disorders or diagnosis, that's not the person. That's just a way to manifest some suffering. These are just some coping strategies, but the person is so much more. And of course, the person is above all the spirit. It's just a way that the brain uses to put in some sort of a balance, which is not the best balance, the person for the moment. So obsessive thoughts can be like that. I'm thinking about that because I want to control that situation in some way. But maybe behind that, there is something that I'm very upset about, or could be many more reasons. Of course, I can project that obsession into Sahaja Yoga, like even in ritualistic, even, in some rigid convictions and thoughts like, no, I believe that this is the way and it should always be the way because mother said so. So I could extract from Shimataji's talks some phrases and be so convinced that my truth is the only truth that I get very rigid about that and I try to convince everyone. I'm not saying that in all the cases it's like this. I'm just giving an example. Or if I have some problems with my mother, I have some maternal complex, then I can project that into Shimataji, and whenever I look at her photo, I believe that she's judging me or she's looking at me, very like punishing me. So I will just, because I'm afraid that she might be punishing me, then I go and do extra programs because it's a way that I try to somehow, not buy, but compensate. And then I could just, even if I'm very tired, even if I'm, at the edge of my resistance, but I will still go on and do that project or do that program. And maybe the participants will see me, white at the face, very, very tired. And maybe that's not the image that we want to send to the seekers. We want to send the image of a happy, prosperous person. So, yeah, I guess I'm not sure if I've answered your question, Lele. But, it's like everything. Just try to imagine that if you have a glass which is already fragile, if you put on a glass table something that it's heavy, it could break. It's not the fault of that object, but it's because already that fragility was there. And things can also happen, outside and inside Sahaja Yoga, but it's not because of Sahaja Yoga. I don't know if I managed to explain myself.
No, and that's exactly what I meant. Of course, it's not because of Sahaja Yoga, because as you said, it's perfect, but just because things that happen like inside the Sangha, for example, so we come across with that. And what about Delia and Katya? Katya,
Later, yeah. Yeah, I want to say that yes, Sahaja Yoga is perfect, is done from a divine, but we are not perfect. We human beings and your Sahaja Yogis are not perfect. That's why we can create even unconsciously and not really be aware of what we are doing, some trauma also to other people. I mean, this I can tell you, in many families, Sahaj and not Sahaj, some parents create a trauma to the children, but the parents love their children, just they are not aware that they are doing it. So, and this is happening in the society everywhere, and of course, because we are human beings, can happen also between us. And this is actually I think we learned a lot already, many things, and many mistakes are not. I think we in Sahaja Yoga we tried to make better and to understand better what to do. I believe there is a real wish not to improve more and more, and this is very important to take care. No, because of course it's really to say the parents send the children to a Sahaj environment, thinking that this is the best, and it is the best actually. It is. But of course, as in the school, normal school, or somewhere, or in the same house where the parents are, things can happen, and but there is a way to overcome this trauma, and this is possible through the therapy. You can, and even as I said before, some yogini told me they manage alone. It is to take care of the inner child. There is when we have a trauma, and there is a bad situation in our life, or like Srimadaji calls it, bad memory. We can take care of this part, because our brain is functioning so that it creates a part of us that when, for example, I was 5 years old and I had a bad experience, there is a small 5 years old Katya inside of me. And if I take care of her with love, empathy, and compassion, and I take care of this part with my inner resources, that are some archetypes, inner helper, and me as a like beyond mother, Shimadaji said in a speech, as a like a really compassionate and loving. This 5 years old Katya will feel comfortable, will be fine, will be integrated again in mine, and slowly, slowly the trauma will work it out. And there is a speech where Shivataji speaks about it. She speaks about attention in this speech, and is the date is the 6th of May 1983. Beyond Mother. It's very interesting, exactly she says what we do in the therapy. And in the speech of 26th of May of 90, she speaks about vritti, but also about memory, bad memories, and how to change bad memories. So I just want to give this, I want also to say to everybody that it's very important to listen the speeches of Shrimadaji and to read them and to really study them, because then we recognize so many things that we hear in the collective, we cannot really absorb. It's so important to study because the speeches, because there is everything. I was amazed. I mean, I'm doing it since some years, and there is so much knowledge. There's so much knowledge that also comes and is connected with my job, and it's really beautiful to see it. So I hope you will profit from these two speeches. And this, what I want to say is a way, we say before, of integration. Taking care of the inner part that were having a bad memory of bad experience in the past helps to integrate them in ourself, and then we feel much more relaxed. Often this kind of experience gives a symptom like anxiety, very often, or problem to sleep, or any other problem of the daily life. That is just a symptom of something that happened many, many years before, and working on that, automatically the symptoms, they go away. Actually, anxiety is one of the easiest to overcome when we work on this level. I mean, with deep introspection. Delia, do you want to say something also?
Yeah, I will just, as Lela mentioned, when we, going back to your questions, the Sahaj patients we work with, they come with roughly the same mental health issues as non-Sahaj patients. However, what I noticed is that the way they manage to overcome some of their struggles is much lighter and faster than the non-yogis. I always say that in my practice, when I work with a patient, it's me, the patient, and God. I always ask God to be the therapist, really, and I just want to be a flute, a clear and sturdy one, just for the divine to work with whatever the patient needs. And we as yogis, we have this tremendous access to the Q quarter. You know, in James Bond had the Q headquarters where they had all these high tech, devices and all the best things. And that's what I call, we as yogis, we have access to these high tech divine instruments, and they're amazing. They are amazing. And now, in therapy, yes, we do use the therapy instruments we learn, but also there is this divine magic that is happening, when working with the Sahaj patients. Also, I noticed, another thing that I wanted to add on the list, especially I've seen at some of the yuvas, and also some other yogis, maybe non-yuvas, is some of them, they have this loneliness feeling, this deep sense of not belonging. I don't know if you've noticed that, but it's something that I've encountered more than I wanted to, but especially at yuvas. And on the outside, they might come to the collective, they might meditate, but inside there is this deep and quiet, loneliness that they carry, and sometimes they don't even know how to talk about it. And that loneliness can become almost existential. And it's something that I really take seriously, because I think also it's something that happens on the outside, as in, with all this, the more we have this social media, the more we become more lonely in our lives. So it's not only with yogis, but it's also with us as humans. And there are different, there can be different reasons why we get there. There can be deep emotional needs, unmet emotional needs, or early experience or childhood experience that have not been processed or accepted. And maybe in their family, maybe at school, maybe also in collective, if there is a lot of judgment. So it's something that I personally, I feel quite, whenever I find this, I really ask Mother, to guide us, because we kind of reparent ourselves, and we work a lot with the inner child and with this, with the mother and the father within ourselves, and we learn to reparent ourselves with the archetypal good mother and the good father that we have within ourselves. And we learn that we can never be lonely, because it's impossible. But it's a bit of a struggle together at the beginning, but I've seen tremendous changes, just by becoming more aware of what's happening within.
Yeah, and if I may just add, I know we maybe are, I don't know if we're with the time bound, but it's also a struggle between attachment and authenticity. Some yuvas believe that if they're authentic, they might lose the attachment and the belonging to the group, and vice versa. And this is something to be worked also at the collective level, just to have the courage to be ourselves. It's fine to be imperfect. It's fine. We are all in the same process of self-realization. It's fine. This is normality. We don't need to put a false, self just to belong, just to be there. And I think, and I close the circle talking about the schools. It's important that whoever works in the schools to have these solved issues inside, because otherwise, knowingly or unknowingly, and most of the times unknowingly, they transmit. And it's a pity. It's a pity. So that's why it's a huge responsibility first to work on yourself, mentally, emotionally, and spirituality, and then be part of the school stuff and have such a beautiful and huge responsibility at the same time. Otherwise, there could be risks on that. Not because the person wants to, because it happens. It's just the way it happens.
Yeah, so what is happening right now is that we are trying to now is there is another session starting just with Fabrizio, but they are linking to this episode, so I can see them appearing like laughing and then leaving being because they don't know what they are doing. By the way,
Because we had quite a serious session. By the way, therapy or things, we're not always so serious, you know.
yeah.
Not at all.
Of course. And also, we have just hit 1 hour and 15 minutes. But
Oh,
there
wow.
is another thing that I would like to ask you because many people texted me about do you know any therapist in Sahaja Yoga? And I'm like, yeah, I know quite a few. There is like a group in Italy of 5 people, and then there is like this international group, and I'm talking just to 3 of them, but there are like at least 2 or 3 more. And I was wondering also because this question came out, can you also help people? Like I know you already do it, but just to make it like I don't know, just to say it in the episode, are you also available to help people in Sahaja Yoga? Are you already doing it? And if so, would it be a bit weird to see your therapist at the lunch line in Cabela or just during the puja or at the Havan, you know? How do you behave with that?
This is a touchy subject for us, how we behave at at the line in Kabbalah. So yeah, we do work with yogis as well because we understand that sometimes having a such therapist, it can be they can understand much more of the life, when we work with yogis, we know there is a spiritual life there as well, and we can relate so much better. This is not to say they can't work with non yogi therapists. It's perfectly fine. We always say check vibrations and ask the divine to guide you into finding the right therapist. And if you want to work with a Sahaj therapist or non-Sahaj, just check vibrations and see how you feel. Okay, that is so important. And yes, as in our ethical, so because we have some rules that we need to adhere to, and one of them is, well, we can't meet with a patient outside the therapy room. So going to Kabbalah is a bit of a challenge even for us. And personally, I will always ask Mother to guide me and to protect me and to and the patients, so that any interaction we might have, of course we interact, but we try to keep it at minimal, because also as therapists we want to be there and enjoy the puja without stressing, oh, there is a patient there and what do I do. So we just ask the divine to keep us in their divine protection, each one of us, and for the interaction to be to our benefit, and yeah, I kind of surrender this to God.
Yeah, and of course we talk with the client, the patient. Okay, probably we will meet at Cabela. So if we prepare and we agree and we say, okay, so if I don't interact that much, it's not because I don't care, it's because to protect this rapport, this relationship, and when it will finish. So we agree on that. And of course, we don't work, this is also part of our deontological code, we don't work with people that we personally know, okay, or friends of the people that we know. So ideally would be to have someone we don't know in Sahaja Yoga. And sometimes we ask each other, oh, I don't know this person. Okay, so maybe I could work if the vibrations say that it's all right for both of us. Because vibrations may say no for I don't know what reason. It's not meant to be, and that's fine, and that's perfect. So yeah, we can't work with someone who is from our own collective, close collective. Not because we wouldn't want to, but because then you would have to choose what kind of rapport do you want with that. If it's professional, then it's professional. If it's personal, then it's personal. It's just not functioning to mix them up. So yeah, Katya, what about you?
Yeah, already you said, I think, the most important point, no, to speak also with the patient, and to avoid to have any kind of interaction, because the distance in the therapy is very important. And there is one thing is very important in the therapy is the relationship. And this relationship has to stay on a level that it has to be saved, or has to be in a good state. So that's why to have too many and too much private sometimes can disturb. And yeah, maybe what I can add about making therapy, we all are working a lot. Unlikely in our job, we don't lack to work. Really, we don't have problem. We have a problem to say no. I have to say to you, and especially after COVID, really it was amazing how the number exploded of people asking for therapy. And so, but of course, according to our space and what we can, take or not the yogi, but we are not here in this space getting any kind of patient, to be really frank. It's just to talk about some topics and make people maybe also understanding what it is psychology or some other topic. This is our aim in this space. And of course, if somebody wants to contact us, this is a completely different story. We will see then personally, privately, what is possible, what is not possible, and so on. But it's really important to say it, no, that we are here as a Sahaja Yogi professional. That's it. Speak about some topics.
And something came up, Katya, what you were saying. Doesn't have to be therapy all the time. It can also be psychological support. That means maybe offer some knowledge or some support for parents or some support for couples, or it doesn't. Therapy means it's an intervention that goes much more deeper, and works with those wounded parts. And that's why you need an extra specialization to do that. A clinical psychologist can offer any kind of psychological support, but may not do psychotherapy, for instance. So just so that the people are informed that okay, we don't have to go that deep. It can just be sharing information. It can be just 1-2 sessions or more sessions depending on the objective. But this is something to decide both of them.
I want to add that actually we are already giving this help, Irina, because we found a group in Italy and in Germany to support the yogis with 2, 3, 4 moments of this consultation. And I did it already many times also with Italian for free. And it's a very nice moment for yogis to have some answers to some questions, and it's our way to give some help to the collective, so as a on a volunteer basis. But of course, We always have to see when, how much, and so on. We have to talk with the people, but it's what we felt that there was a need, and that's why we created some help like this.
Okay, okay. I think we can wrap it up. I want to deeply thank Katya, Delia, and Irina for bringing not only their professional knowledge, but also their empathy, clarity, and experience as a Sahaja Yoginis. These are not easy topics to speak about, especially within a spiritual community, I would say. But I hope this episode showed that there is no contradiction between spiritual growth and emotional healing or mental healing. I don't know if I'm using the right psychological words, but you get the point. You get the point of what I'm saying. In fact, it seems like they often go hand in hand. So I also would like to ask to the listeners, feel free to reach out or to share this episode or to send a comment about your thoughts and your experiences, because that would be really interesting. And so we can, like this podcast existed so we can grow, understand, and support each other, not just in light, but also we discovered also in the shadows. So thank you really much. Thank you really much for joining. This was a Sahaj Times podcast. Bye.